All right, here we go. Another Square Dance Callers Talking tonight. I've got a true honor here tonight. I met this guy a few years ago. We got to be really close in the last couple of years, and especially over the last few weeks when we were at the last national convention. Tonight, I've got a gentleman. Am I correct? You're in Oklahoma?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tonight, I like to call my namesake. This is the 4th of July special podcast. I have Charlie Robertson coming to you tonight. Actually, my sergeant was named Robertson, so I'll not call you Robertson again. It's Charlie Robertson. How are you tonight, sir?
I am doing great, Charlie. Thanks for letting me be a part of this.
Man, I'm so glad to have you here and to get to talk about some stuff. We have spent some time together, especially in the last few weeks, and then over the conventions because you are in Oklahoma. What part of Oklahoma are you in?
I'm very southern central Oklahoma,
Okay.
right along the I-35 corridor.
Okay, now are you from there? Were you born and raised there, or where you come from?
No, I'm actually from California, but
Okay.
I'm a Chickasaw citizen. I belong to the Chickasaw Native
Okay.
American tribe. And when we decided to leave California, moving into the boundaries of the Chickasaw Nation seemed the smartest thing to do. So my beautiful bride, Christy, found this little town named Sulphur, Oklahoma.
Okay.
I don't know how she found it, to be honest with you, but she found it and decided that's where we wanted to live. So here we are.
Nice. Very nice. All right. So you're married. And how long have you been married?
Oh, we've been married for 10 years. Well,
10 years.
10 and a half years. Yeah.
Okay. Any plans on ever leaving Oklahoma, or is that where you're going to stay?
No, we're pretty happy here. We like it. So, no plans at this time.
Yeah, I've passed through it a few times for whatever reason. I'd love to be in that type of area. I don't know. My wife's more passionate about the beach, so I'm sure we'll end up at the beach at some point in our life for the remainder. So you're a square dance caller, yes?
Yes, sir.
That's why we are here, sir. When did you start square dancing?
I started square dancing when I was 9 years old. My mom took a square dance class. My dad wouldn't go.
Okay.
And so she went and took a square dance class and thoroughly enjoyed it. And when she graduated, my dad went to support her for her graduation dance. And he said he sat there all night long tapping his feet and having a good time. So the next square dance class he was in.
Very nice.
And so a lot of the times when I was young, instead of staying home alone and doing my homework, I would go with them to square dance class when my dad was going through class. And one night, their instructor, they needed one more man in a square. And the instructor looked over at me and said, "Here, get up, Charlie. You can get in that square." And I went, "I have no idea what I'm doing." He goes, "Oh, you'll be fine. They'll pull you through." And lo and behold, with a 9-year-old brain, I was picking up stuff, had no idea I was, and I kind of knew a lot of the calls. So when the classes started the next go around for the local teen club, I started the classes, but I only went through probably half of them because I already knew how to dance and just didn't really realize I knew how to dance.
Wow, very nice.
So, but the family, I've got a brother who's 15 years older than I am, and a sister who's 13 years older than I am. So they were grown and out of the house, but they ended up finding square dancing also. And so the whole family, we'd go out to square dance events and travel all over. And it just became a huge part of my life.
That's a great start. To have it start out as a child, 9, 10 years old, that's impressive. And yeah, you do. And I'm sure. So you've taught a lot of classes, square dance classes, and all that over the years.
Over the years, yes, I've taught a whole bunch. I love to teach.
You can really see it. And I haven't taught a whole lot, but I've been a part of angeling or whatever for classes. The younger, especially 9, 10, but you get to teenage. You can go through almost the whole mainstream program in 2 nights if you had them for 2 nights because they pick it up so fast.
Yeah, their brain is in learning mode, and they're young brains, so they pick it up quick.
Yeah, that's nice. So you're dancing along, 9, 10 years old. When did you decide you think you're going to be a square dance caller? Give it a go.
Well, that was actually there was a place in Southern California called The Barn. It was in North Hollywood, and we were there to dance. And there was a gentleman calling named Jerry Schatzer. And Jerry was just an amazing caller. He just truly amazing caller. And one of the tips, I wasn't dancing. I was standing over kind of on the side of the stage area and watching him be able to move the dancers and really get them to dance kind of above their head. And he just was a master at body flow and getting people to dance and just they had confidence in him. And I sat there going, man, I want to be able to do that. And so I went to my mom and said, yeah, I want to be a square dance caller someday. And my mom was this really cool, outgoing lady. And the next time she ran into one of the callers that she knew lived in our area, his name was Sam Atkinson. She walked up to him and said, hey, Charlie wants to learn how to call. Will you teach him? And he went, I guess, sure. And as it turned out, Sam was a Navy chief, and he was stationed at a naval base that wasn't very far from where we lived in Southern California. And we started going down to his house every Monday night. And he was kind of, I equate it to like Mr. Miyagi from the Karate Kid.
Okay.
He was this really cool but very strict teacher, and he was the perfect guy to teach somebody my age how to call. And
How old were you then?
I was well, I started learning when I was probably 10 and a half, maybe 11.
Oh, wow. Okay. So really quick into dancing. Okay.
Yeah. And I called my first dance. My first dance I got paid to call was when I was 12.
Come on.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah, it was cool. But he,
you remember
like I
what
said,
songs you were doing? Remember the singing calls?
Let's see if I can remember at least one of them. Darn it, I don't remember them, to be honest with you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they were maybe Tulsa Time or something along those lines. But they were classics. I remember the first time he let me call in front of people. He invited me to come to his class one night, to his club. It was down in Oxnard, California, and he asked me up on the stage, and I was so nervous I couldn't get the needle down on the record. I was shaking so bad. And so he walked over and he put the needle on the record for me. And he had taught me 2 memorized sequences. And they're singing call sequences, to be honest with you. And he said, the first one is going to be head square through 4, do-si-do the corner, swing through, boys trade, boys run, bend the line, square through 3, do a left allemande and right and left grand. Okay. And the second one was same thing, head square through 4, do-si-do, swing through, spin the top, boys walk up, do a right and left through, square through 3, do a left allemande. And I had those memorized. So I did one for the heads, one for the sides, did a little middle break kind of thing, circle left, and then did, again, the opposite sequence then for the sides and the heads. Well, about midway through the third sequence, I got lost. I got nervous and I missed a call. And I knew enough to keep calling. So I just kept giving out calls that I knew they could do. And he was standing behind me acting like he was going through the record case. And he went, star through, pass through, left allemande. So I said, star through, pass through, left allemande. And the whole crowd went, yay.
Wow.
And I thought he was a magic man. It was the coolest thing in the world that he knew exactly where I was. It was cool.
That's outstanding. To have somebody like that, for sure. It really is.
Yeah, he was special.
So as you're getting older, and I mean, you mentioned a couple of folks now. What other influences caller wise did you have when you were growing up?
I was really, really lucky growing up in Southern California. We either had amazing talent that lived in Southern California, or we had a lot of amazing talent that came and visited Southern California. One of my earliest kind of mentors was Mike Seastrom. Mike, okay. Yeah, he was already, he was young, but he was already very well known and very, very talented when I was a kid. And Mike was nice enough to come to me and say, hey, I started when I was young. If you ever have any questions, call me. And I was young and dumb enough to do it. So I'd pick up the phone and call him. And he was just always so, so nice. And he would answer my questions. And he's always been just a special, special guy in my life. But there's been so many, there's been guys that have visited town that would always answer questions. And they were just so open to talk.
Yeah.
1985 was the very first Caller Lab convention that I went to. And there I got to meet guys that were my heroes. And then, I had been calling for a little while by that point. But I hadn't had the opportunity to go to a Caller Lab, and went there, and, guys like Tony Oxendine and Jerry Story and Wade Driver were just nothing but welcoming. They absolutely were wonderful. In fact, Wade was doing a seminar at that Caller Lab on using music to help with the, help kind of drive the emotion of the dance.
Mhm.
And it was a really interesting seminar. And after we got done, I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, I really love what you talked about. I'd love to learn more." And he said, "Well, let's go to lunch." So we went to lunch and sat down, and he spent the entire lunchtime talking to me about music.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, I've just been so fortunate in my life to have guys that have just been huge influences from a very, very young age.
Yeah, I've never had the opportunity to sit down and talk to Wade Driver. I mean, I've met him a time or two at Caller Labs in passing and spoken for a moment. But yeah, that's priceless what you get from those guys that been
Yeah.
doing it all their lives, and they come into it. And again, just as welcoming as you can always. And yeah, I've never had anybody I feel like slighted me and just walk away if I was talking
No.
to them. Just coming along. So it's good folks. And you're fortunate, man. And I've done very little in California. I passed through it twice, going to Hawaii and coming back from Hawaii. So I've never really done anything in there. So you're calling dances. I mean, you're a teenager now, and you've got a lot of good mentors. What's some of your most memorable dances you had? I mean, how much have you traveled and stuff like that calling?
Well, I've actually been able to travel quite a bit over the years. My first out of town gig, I went up to Oregon to call.
Okay.
And in California, in between the patter and the singing call, they rotate the square. They stir the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that happened everywhere.
Right.
And so I actually had come up with these little choreographic things where I automatically stirred the bucket for people, and got up to Oregon, and they don't stir the bucket there, and I didn't know it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm stirring the bucket for them, and they're like, "You're putting us in the wrong place, man." So they fixed their square, and finally, after the second or third tip, I realized that I didn't need to do that anymore.
Wow. Okay.
So that was fun, and I've been able to travel quite a bit. I a few years ago got my first opportunity to, well, it's been several years ago now, first opportunity to go over to Europe and call in Sweden.
Oh, wow,
And
Stan.
yeah, I started off in Sweden, and then since then I've been able to call in Sweden, Denmark, Germany, France, Belgium, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful ride.
That's awesome.
Someday I'm hoping to get to Japan. That's on my bucket list.
Yeah. Well, I hear about it, Japan, and of course the dancing levels in all the other countries I hear is so high.
Yeah,
And then the way you put it out there is very specific. Maybe one day, I don't know if I'll ever get to that level. I've heard about Japan, and I've just started hearing about Denmark and Germany and all that. Love to go over.
oh, it's a gas, man. It's fun to go and dance with them. It's even more fun to go and call for them.
Wow.
They're an impressive group, and again, some of the nicest, most warm people that I've ever met. Square dancers worldwide are just an amazing group of
Yeah.
people.
I spent a couple of weeks in Japan when my son was in the Air Force, and nicest people in the world, and everybody told me, hey, if they all speak English, when you get over there, they'll speak English to you. The only person who spoke English to me was my son and my wife. But we had no problems communicating. Now we were in northern Japan, and but you'd go into a fast food restaurant over there, and they would point everything out. Could easily communicate, but did not speak any English to me. But I didn't expect when you get out of the main cities and all that.
Right.
But it's a great place over there.
And we found that in Germany, and where I was calling in Germany, there weren't a lot of the dancers that spoke a lot of English, but you could still find out how to communicate, and it was actually more fun.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're now, especially overseas, but when you're on this side, when you're in the United States, what's your process for programming a dance when you start putting together a dance for like a club that you haven't been to before or whatever?
I have a lot of modules that I use, especially in the first few tips. I'm a big believer in using modules along with sight calling. Um, I have learned over the years that if you're strictly a sight caller, you can get in trouble pretty quick,
Sure.
especially if you don't know the dancers and you don't know who to pair up. So I've learned that I go in and I start using some modules, and I start massaging the level up a little bit to see what the level is, and I'm the other thing I truly believe in is the dancers have to win.
Sure.
I'm not there to show them what I know. I'm there to show them what they know. And so I want to make sure that they, I give people little nuggets of choreographic things that we build to so they have a better opportunity to get and, give them that successful feeling.
Right.
And I work a lot on get outs and finding ways to get back to corner that's hopefully a surprise and makes people excited when they find corners, not just the same way out every time.
That's something I picked up on in the last few years that I've been calling was the get outs, because when I first started, the whole goal was get to the corner. And so I knew the easiest way was in a position where I can call a square through three or a center's pass through element left. But, I've learned over the years, especially with the GSI schools and the other caller schools that I've gone to, you got to have get outs, because you can't do square through three to an element left all night long. I mean, you can, but you're probably not going back to that club if it's a club you've never been to.
Yeah, that's the thing. The dancers have become sophisticated enough over the years. They figure it out.
Yeah.
And so we've got to do a good job of giving them that surprise at the end of the sequence that finds corner in a fun way that's hopefully new to them.
Yeah. And part of the entertaining is the surprise.
Yeah.
Some people like the standard stuff, but you've got to throw in the, whatever, slide through or back away your home, whatever, just something that surprises them, catches them off guard. And so then I was like, oh, I got to start all over again. I can't do my square through three, just go until I get a paired couple and then work on the corner. So,
just to finish that thought, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I also think a lot about the singing calls that I use. And I watched I've seen different entertainers many, many times, but one that's always has impressed me with the way that he puts music together is Garth.
Mm-hmm.
And I started kind of analyzing the type of music he was using and what order he was doing things. So if you ever watch a Garth concert, you'll notice he'll use a couple of kind of middle of the road songs, two of a kind working on a full house, something like that, to open up his concert. And then he'll come with, I got friends in low places, and the crowd's going absolutely berserk. They're, you scrape them off the ceiling, and he follows that up with something like The River.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everybody's singing along, and they're holding their lighters up in the air or their cell phones.
Yeah.
And what he has done is he's raised the emotion to really, really high, and then dropped it down to really low. And now he's directing their emotions with his choice in music. Well, I try to do the same thing when I select songs for singing calls, and frankly, music for patter as I program a dance.
Okay.
So I do the same thing. I do a couple of middle of the road songs. I do kind of middle of the road patter music. Then I do something really, really high energy, and then drop it down to a love song. And if I can get those people singing as they're promenading home, I got them.
Yeah.
And now the rest of the night, I got to mess up pretty bad to drop them.
Yeah.
So, which I've done, but I try not to.
That's something I had to learn because I always thought if I can get them here and just stay there, and you can't,
No, you wear them out. They get tired.
Because I love.
And if you go up and down all night, they get tired too. You don't want to wear people out.
You got to build up, and that's very nice. And speaking of those singing calls, you've recorded quite a few. What's some of the music you've recorded? Some of the songs.
Oh, I've been really fortunate in that. I recorded for several different record labels over the years. I was with Lumac for a lot of years. On Lumac, I did probably the one I'm frankly most famous for is Whoop Square It Is. It's a square dance rap.
Okay.
Not necessarily it's not necessarily one I'm most proud of, but it is different, and people like it because it is different. It's certainly not a song I do at every dance. But I've done a couple of Kid Rock songs. I've done some Uncle Cracker tunes, things like that. I've done a few love songs that and I'm really proud of a lot of them. I recently was asked to come on to Royal Records, and I'm real excited about that. searching around right now for music for my first Royal song,
Okay.
but hopefully soon we'll find the right song.
What not square dance music, what music are you listening to typically genre wise when you're not listening to square dance?
You know, I'm really eclectic. I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. Um, in college, I took a music appreciation class, and that really opened my eyes to a lot of different kinds of music. Believe it or not, I really enjoy classical music.
Nice. Okay.
I like the complexity of it, and I like the complexity of the instrumentation and how it's built. Um, I listen to some country. I'm not the biggest fan of modern country, but I really like the 90s and 80s country.
Yeah.
Um, I like the 90s pop music like Matchbox 20 and um, Sister Hazel and those kind of bands.
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of different stuff. I'm not a huge big rap fan, although there's some out there that I've listened to that I kind of tap my foot to. Um, although a lot of the lyrics in rap seem to be pretty violent, and I'm not into that.
Now they certainly have over the years.
Yeah. Back in the heyday, or back in the what do they call it? The when hip hop first was coming out, a lot of those were fun to listen to, but it's gotten kind of violent now. And I don't listen to a lot of the speed metal or anything like that. That's just not my thing. But otherwise, I listen to pretty much anything. I'll give anything a try.
I was in, I was in high school in the '80s, and when rap was coming out, and that was Run DMC, Houdini, LL Cool J, Eric B. and Rakim. I mean, that's all I listened to. But it wasn't a violent type,
Right.
Right. And then it started turning in the '90s, late '90s, and I still enjoyed some of that stuff. But I just kind of got away from it as I got older. I was also a pop hair bands, Def Leppard, Scorpions, probably my favorite band of all time, Scorpions, and the Metallica.
I saw them in concert actually.
Did you? Where at?
Yeah. I saw them up in San Jose, or not San Jose, up in Concord, California.
Oh, God, I would love to see them in concert.
Just amazing live. What a great show. Yeah, they were fun.
They still play in Vegas quite often, and we've never got out there to go. So I'd love to go. My wife wouldn't step in the building if I was going to see the Scorpions. I'd have to go by myself. But
no, actually, my wife, she was a rocker in her younger days, so we went up and just absolutely enjoyed it. It was Rat open for him.
Oh,
and it was just
around.
It was a great show. It really was a lot of fun.
That's phenomenal, man. That's fantastic. That's a good story there.
The music that I've gotten into lately is this Red Dirt Country. Have you heard of that?
You got any artists or anything? I've never heard. I've heard the term, but I don't know exactly what it is.
It's kind of it's kind of based out of the area I live in, out of kind of the southern Oklahoma and Texas area. One of the bands that has gotten a lot of popularity is a band called Midland.
I've heard of it.
Last night we actually went down with some friends down to Billy Bob's in Fort Worth and saw a band called Mike and the Moon Pies.
Okay.
And I'd never heard of them. Our friends had invited us to go with them, and I said, "Yeah, I'll go." Hey, it was a great show. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's kind of a retro country feel, kind of almost like an '80s country feel.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, the newer country nowadays, I don't really care for.
But, I'm the same way.
Your '80s, '90s, and I mean, the further you go back, you get into the Hank Williams Seniors and all that stuff, and George Strait, who's still out there. But that's kind of what I like, country wise.
Yeah. So I think give a listen to like Midland. Try them out and see how you like them. They're absolutely a lot of fun.
So of all those places, what I was talking to a couple other people, and during your calling, what are some of a hall that stood out to you?
Halls?
Yeah, like a hall that just the acoustics or the way it looked, something that was unique.
Oh, absolutely. One of my absolute favorite halls is up in the Pacific Northwest, in Olympia, Washington. There's a hall called the Lakido Square Dance Hall. It's a log building, absolutely beautiful. Apparently, it was built many, many years ago, and then there was a fire. The building burnt down completely, and the square dancers built up enough money and had enough benefit dances that they rebuilt the building.
Oh man, that's
Then
awesome.
when they rebuilt it, unfortunately, the sound apparently was horrible. And so they hired a sound guy to come in, and he took all kinds of readings, both with people in the room, people out of the room, with music playing, without music playing. And he built a sound baffling system that is up in the ceilings. And the speakers are turned up, and the sound goes up into that sound baffling system. Then it comes down on the top of every square. So the sound is perfect everywhere in the hall.
Wow, that is awesome.
It's just amazing. I asked the guy, the club president, when I was there, because, you know, in the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of Native American names for things. And I said, well, what does lackado mean? And he went, it means we didn't have any money. We had a lack of dough. And I was like, okay, that's cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, man, that's a great story. You know, because we call, well, there's so many times that we call in, you know, churches or senior centers, schools, gymnasiums, and they're fantastic. And it's a pleasure to go into any of them. I'll call anywhere you want me to. Called outside a couple of times. But yeah, when you get something that jumps out like that, this, you know, built for a caller, when they start doing the sound system and all that, man, that's something that makes it even more special.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, frankly, it makes our job so much easier. The Swing Time Center down in Fort Worth. I'm really fortunate. I get to go down there and call quite a bit. And it's another hall that was built for square dancing, and they have their own sound system built into it. It just makes your job so much easier. You don't have to worry about the sound rattling around the room if you have the speaker slightly turned wrong, you know. It's those halls that were specifically built for square dancing are special. And sadly, they're becoming kind of few and far between to find.
Yeah. Now, if I had the means, I would absolutely, I'd buy some acreage and I'd build my little barn out there and have it all set for calling and everything. But I mean, that's not going to set up for me. I can tell you that, because I'm going to be on a beach. Like I told you earlier, I'm going to be on a beach somewhere at some point, I'm pretty sure, with my wife.
Well, we'll be hanging out together with Mai Tais, brother.
Absolutely. I'll do that in a second, my friend. Any lessons for callers? I know you were working with the GSI school and all that stuff. Any lessons for callers you just want to put out there?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that frustrates me is when calls get used either improperly or get used in the same way so often that we've led the dancers to believe that that's the way it's always done.
Right.
And things that just get overused.
Yeah. Find
a way to do it different. You know, there's one of the things that comes right to mind: swing through, spin the top, boys walk up, right and left through. And we've all called it a million times, to the point that it's overused. In fact, I promise you that you can go into some halls and call swing through, spin the top, and not say another word, and the dancers will walk up and do a right and left through.
Yep, it's true.
It just happens. It's not the dancer's fault. It's we've overused it. And so find a way to get there without doing that. Challenge yourself to take something that you know you do a lot and don't use it at all for at least one tip a night.
Okay.
You know, like swing through, boys run. If you call that a lot, find another way to get there. And I promise you, if you do it, you're going to find about a million other ways to get there that are better.
Yeah.
And it's something somebody challenged me to do many years ago. And it's something I still work at all the time. Hey, I get into ruts just like anybody else. And that's one way that I like to break out of those, is find things that I overuse and find another way.
Gotcha.
It's going to help you. It's going to help the dancers. It's good for everybody.
Yeah, that's a really good tip to pick up on, because, you know, as callers learning and watch, I record a ton of people. I recorded so much patter at the national convention this year. I haven't even gone through nearly any of, or most of it. I've heard probably 8 or 10 different ones, and it's all over the board. It's great calling if you go to a convention.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, I mean, I'll go in there and I'm like, oh, and I'll tell you one I picked up on last year at the national convention. I was, you know, trying to figure out different ways that scoop back, boys run. And I was like, I've got to stop this scoop back boys run. And I was watching Ted Lizotte one night and at the convention last year, and he said, scoop back, cast off 3/4. And, you know, in girls connect, boys connect, whatever position you're in. And I was like, well, I ought to do that. And that opened up a whole nother, because I never thought of cast off 3/4 from there, because it's just not something you always hear. Well, I don't always hear from where I'm at.
And the body flows so much better.
It is. You know, and so I started working that in, and I was like, man, that's really good. So yeah, you've got to, although you want to, I try and imitate certain people that I've heard, but you can't just do the same thing. Going back to something you said when we first started about one of the callers that was working with you, that he could lift the dancers up and make them better with how he was calling. You know, so a lesson I learned about 5 years ago when I was watching people on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, I really like that. Let me write this down. This is what Jet did. Right. And I'd go into a club and I'd have it written out, and I'd start, you know, boom, boom, just going exactly how he said it. And then the floor is just staring at me, the 2 or 3 squares, because I want all the little filler words I wasn't putting in, you know, girls connect here and girls try. And I thought, I can't do it. I've got to figure this out on my own. Take what I hear from other callers and make it my own with the wording and all that. And because there's the way you present it. You can't go in there and just read off something that it just pick a caller, a national caller, and it's going to be successful. Because if you don't present it and you don't time it right, the timing has a big part of it. You know that.
Absolutely.
So it's a ton of work. So yeah, that's a great tip to challenge yourself not to use certain calls.
If you're gonna do one of those, somebody was calling me, but I'm sorry. If you're going to use one of those little choreographic nuggets, you know, something that is a little bit tricky, you can't just throw it out there because your success rate isn't going to be real high. However, if you build to it, if you let the dancers see little bits of it first and build to that, then give it to them, your success rate goes up so much more. And like you said, those little helper words, they're amazing. Jet probably is the best at giving those really quick little helper words where he's not describing how to do the call, but he's just giving people just enough help that they go, oh, okay, that's what he wants.
Yeah.
And you'll get success. And to me, there's a challenge. I challenge myself to you know, when I come up with something that maybe is choreographically difficult, well, okay, now how am I going to be able to present that and build to that so that most of the dancers have success doing it? And to me, that's what calling is all about. It's finding a way to present that information so that you get most of the dancers having success with it.
Absolutely. I mean, you can impress them with the things that you do know, but you've got to get them through it.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, they came to listen to you if you're a guest caller. They came to listen to you, but they also came to dance. And more than likely, they came to dance. They were going to come anyway, probably, but they might be more excited when they find out Charlie Robertson's coming to town. But you can't go in there and go, just look at this. This is what I can do. You know, if you can get them through it, I mean, it's even the better for you. They have to win, just like you said, and but you have to be Charlie Robertson, and you've got to work your own angle and get there. You know,
exactly.
I could sit there and write down your entire pattern from a tip that I heard, and go in and read it somewhere, and it would be terrible because it would be stop and go, and I wouldn't get them through it. You know, it's something
I don't know, Charlie. I think you're selling yourself short, man.
No, I mean, if you're just using somebody else's pattern.
Exactly.
You've got to make it your own. It's got to come out. And, you know, I'll do that with a lot of singing calls. I'll listen to the singing call and I'll learn it just the way it is. And a good example of that, there's Post Malone, who's one of my favorite artists now. Phil Cam did Circles on TBT a couple of years ago. And I've got that, and the pattern he has in it has a box the nat in the pattern, and it works great with that song. It really does. The problem is if I don't put a box the nat into my pattern, It is breaking. It's, now not all squares, but a lot of the local squares that don't hear a lot of different music. You throw that box and that in there, and they don't know where to go after that. If they're not swinging, it's box and that, swinging promenade, and they want to let them go after the box and that. Typically, the box and that's a right and left through. That's what you always hear when they're half sashayed, boxed and that, do a right and left through, and that's just so the caller can get them back to the normal position, for lack of a better term. So yeah, you've got to put it in your pattern. You got to build on it, man. That's all great stuff for callers, brother. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I do these podcasts as much for me as I do anybody else. Trying to learn it myself.
I'm just so glad you're doing them. This is really, really cool.
Man, it started out. Go ahead.
I've been able to watch several of them, and man, you do a great job with these.
That's awesome. It started out. I was sitting with a few callers, and they were telling stories, and I was like, man, people have to hear these things. So that being said, give me a funny story. Whatever happened, it really stands out that, man, that was a funny thing that happened to me or to a dancer or whatever. You don't have to use names if you don't want.
I don't know of any ones that are clean. I'm just, boy, you catch me a little off guard here. I don't really.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I didn't know if No. I just. You've already had great stories, man. Just starting at 9 years old is amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And calling your first dance at 12. I think you might have a leg up on just about everybody I've ever talked to. I mean, I know some people started young.
Yeah.
But calling your own dance at 12, that's a feat right there.
Well, I got to tell you, one of the things that gentleman Sam Atkinson that taught me how to call, when I was going through he didn't have any defined curriculum. He was just teaching me, and I was going to his house every Monday. My parents would take me over there. So there wasn't a defined, okay, now you're done with class. I kept going and kept learning things from him. And he set up for me, he got a hold of a couple of his clubs and got them to sponsor teen clubs.
Nice.
And again, back then there were a lot of kids that danced. And there were a lot of younger couples that had kids that they wanted those kids to dance. So he basically gift wrapped 2 clubs for me. And so I got to go and teach at a very young age. And I got to go and be able to call not only for teenagers, but for adults at a very, very young age. And it was, some of it was a gift, some of it was a curse. I made a lot of mistakes. Yeah. And I wasn't very good back then, But
well, I mean, you got to learn. You're going to make mistakes. Absolutely.
But I was given the opportunity to do that, and it was just I look back now and understand what a special gift that was to be able to do that, and it was a lot of fun. There was sometimes there was very frustrating for me because I didn't know what I didn't know, and I did learn from Sam that if I was going to teach, I needed to go sit down and read the definitions and learn them. And so at least I had that in my back pocket. I knew what the definitions were for the calls. And so it was special. But I've been able to meet people and do things and go places I never would have gone without this. It's amazing. I mean, our best friends in the world are Jet and Sylvia Roberts. Okay. And in fact, when I got married, Jet was my best man. Sylvia was Christy's maid of honor.
Very nice. Okay.
Would I have met Jet without square dancing? I don't know. I probably not. Would I have met you?
Yep.
I've been able to make some really, really good friends all over the world through this activity, and it's been a gift.
It is. It's a unique community for sure. And yeah, minus square dancing, I wouldn't have I'd have never gone to any conventions or anything like that. We danced for years before I started calling. But, just like I was saying with this podcast, you don't really get to know the callers for the most part if you're a dancer. I mean, if I was at a national convention, I wouldn't have just walked up to you and started talking to you or anything like that. Just because I would be a dancer.
We're open to it.
No, you could, but you wouldn't. And because I would go meet another dancer. I wouldn't even think, hey, let me go talk to these guys over here. They're all callers because, what do we have in common? other than square dancing, we're not callers. So it's it's opened a lot of doors for me and met a lot of awesome people, you know. Because when you start getting our age in life, if you don't have an opportunity like this, you're not going to meet a whole lot of new people, you know, because you're not going anywhere unless you're on a cruise ship. So, and we are on a cruise ship in February, by the way.
Oh, yes, we are. I cannot wait for that. I thought of a funny story.
Okay, let's have it.
Believe it or not, I thought of a funny story. So a few years ago, I flew up to Canada to call a weekend in Canada. And I flew into the airport up there, and I had a connecting flight from Montreal to Toronto. And so I'm going through customs. And finally I was sent for further inspection. And I said, oh, well, okay, whatever. So I finally get up to the front of the line. It took forever. I missed my connecting flight, but got to the front of the line, and this agent was sitting there, and he said, so what exactly is the reason for your trip to Canada? And I said, well, I'm going to a square dance function. And he looked around and went, without a partner? I said, well, yeah, a lot of people go to square dance events without partners. And he goes, so you expect Canada to provide a partner for you? And I went, no. I'm going to call at this event. I don't need to have a partner to call. And he goes, how many bags did you pack? I said, one. And he goes, what's in your bag? Clothes? He said, And he kept on with these kind of questions for 45 minutes and finally stamped my card and let me through. Well, when I got out of the customs area and went in, now I've got to go to the airline and find another flight to get where I'm going. So I called the host couple that was supposed to pick me up at the airport, because you can't use your cell phone while you're in customs. And so I called, and the lady that ran the weekend, she said, oh, Charlie, we completely understand. Every year we have at least one American caller come in to call for this weekend. And almost every year that caller has some sort of problem getting here. So it's not a problem. And I was like, oh my God. I've flown into so many other countries and it's never been an issue, never a problem. They're nice. They stamp your passport, let you go on. Canada, of all places, for some reason, didn't want me to come and call there.
That's amazing. That's a great story, man. I just, when you first said he's asking you about partners, and I thought you were going to tell me he was a square dancer or something like that.
No. And they kind of warned me when they booked me to do this that they sent me some documentation that's in their laws about if you're going in as an entertainer, there are certain laws, and they had met all those criteria. So I had the paperwork, right, but I didn't expect it to be that in depth and had that much of a question and answer session.
I'll be cognizant of that if I ever get up to Canada for anything. So.
Yeah, if you go to Canada, understand that it may take a little while to get across the border.
Okay, I had one of my bucket list things was all my mother's family is from Newfoundland, Canada, off the East Coast, and I always said I wanted to. I don't even know how much square dancing is in Newfoundland, Canada, but I thought, I'd love to go up there and call one day. So maybe at some point I'll get up there. I'll get with Mr. Brinzy or somebody to get me up in that area.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's some great dancers and great callers up in Canada.
Is that right?
Yeah, Ray. You mentioned Ray.
Yeah,
Brinzy. He's one of my dear friends, and that man is an incredibly good caller. He's just a very good caller.
I've heard him at conventions with him and his kids. I've heard him at the conventions and stuff like that because I don't get around other places that they are. But yeah, he's awesome to listen to. And super, I mean, just the intelligence. I've heard him in conversation with people. And again, another very nice guy. Just to talk
truly.
To. So
yeah,
very welcoming.
Good dude. And his kids are great. They sing with him. That family harmony is something you just can't duplicate. It's pretty amazing.
You can't. Something you grow up with, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, some personal stuff about you. So we got you up there. First of all, you got the cruise coming up. Any other big dances besides the cruise that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm going to HASDA, the Heart of America Square Dance Association. That's coming up at the end of about 3 weeks, I guess, from now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That'll be myself, Bob Asp, and Jet Roberts.
Nice.
That'll be a fun weekend.
Where is it again?
It's in Arkansas.
Arkansas.
don't ask me the name of the city right off the top of my head because I
Okay.
don't have a flyer here in front of me.
Okay.
Uh, and just I've got a club down in Plano, Texas that I call for. I have a club in Holdenville, Oklahoma that I call for. So I've got those dances all the time, and
Very nice. Okay.
a few anniversary dances coming up here and there. So we stay busy. They're
Well,
as
that's
busy as
good,
we
man.
want to stay.
That's good.
And
And
like you mentioned the cruise now a few times, it's that cruise is going to be super special.
yeah, it is. I mean, there's a ton of people, callers, and I mean, I'm sure I've never been on a square dance cruise before.
Oh,
I've been
Charlie,
on
you're going to have fun, buddy.
I've been on a few cruises, but never square dance. So I'm super looking forward to this, especially with all the callers that are going to be there.
Well,
Um,
and I think every one of them.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we're all friends. So
So
yeah, it's going to be a blast. And then I think we have I don't know 75 or 80 squares of dancers to
there's
hang out with.
70 squares that I know of, and I think there's like 5 or 6 more squares that are all in a waiting pattern or a
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, if we can get through to that, I think it's going to be a good time for sure.
Oh,
I've
yes,
got
it
a
will.
few plans. So just I started throwing these out there, more personal things, and if you want to expound on them, you let me know, and I throw the same ones out there just to get a feel.
Sure.
I'm a movie guy. I love movies. I love comedy, stuff like that. But as far as movies, Footloose or Dirty Dancing, and why?
Oh, for me, Footloose. Um,
Fantastic, Charlie.
yeah, yeah. I'm Kevin Bacon. I think did a great job in that movie.
Mhm.
Christopher Penn. I truly loved him
Oh,
in that.
yep, yep.
He was great. Loved the story. I loved the the theme it was based around, and that kind of fish out of water thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Last night, my wife, big, huge fan of Sex in the City and all the
Uh,
variations that have gone off of that. And there's something else on HBO Max now or something now. And she was talking about Sarah Jessica Parker. And I said, that's not her best role. Her best role is absolutely Footloose.
Without
Almost
question,
like you've
yes.
lost your mind. I was like, no, when she was with Chris Penn, that was the greatest couple I think I'd ever
Uh,
seen. So that was last night we were talking about that. So that's awesome, man. Again, I love Dirty Dancing with Patrick Swayze, but
oh yeah, absolutely. It's iconic. It's
Footloose,
great, but
the
Footloose is
Kevin Bacon, that whole thing. If that comes on, I'm sitting down. I don't care what I'm doing, what's going on around me.
yeah, it's on my list. There's a few movies that no matter if I'm flipping channels, no matter where they are in the movie, I'm going to watch it the rest of the way. Footloose is certainly one of them.
You can't any movie that Kenny Loggins does a soundtrack for, I can't get away from.
So
Top
Kenny
Gun,
Loggins was my
Footloose.
first concert.
No kidding.
Yep, absolutely.
Wow.
Universal Amphitheater at Universal Studios in Southern California. First concert I ever went to was Kenny Loggins. He blew my mind.
That's awesome, man.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. You've seen some awesome concerts. Good gracious.
Oh, again, I've been lucky, man. I've been able to see, and I saw Metallica. Um, I've seen Garth a few times. I saw Adam Ant. If you remember
No
back in the
kidding.
80s.
I know Adam Ant. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I saw Mr. Mister. I saw Berlin probably 5 times. I love Berlin.
That
So
would be the bonus to being in California and all that. Growing up in Savannah, we had a very small civic center. So we got smaller country groups in the 70s and 80s. The first concert I ever saw was in 86. 85. I was in high school, and it was the Beastie Boys.
okay,
That's where I started, was the Beastie Boys. And I've seen Alan Jackson and a few others in concert. I've seen Metallica since I've moved to Atlanta, but that was in their latter years, his last few years. But yeah, man, that's awesome. And we didn't have groups like that come to Savannah, unfortunately. They would go to Jacksonville, and of course, my
right.
mother and father were not going to drive me at 15 to Jacksonville to see a concert, to see 38 Special or something,
You know what? The Chickasaw Nation, the tribe that I'm a citizen of, one of the casinos we own is probably maybe 40 minutes north of us, and they just had 38 Special there,
No
and so we went and saw them. And
oh,
they have one original member, And
Yeah.
it's the lead singer, and I can't think of his name right now, but
Oh my
he's still with
gosh.
them, and they're still unbelievably good. They're absolute. I mean, they're pros. And the great thing about this, my wife, she's online reading, her phone one day, and she
Mhm.
goes, "Hey, tomorrow night, 38 Special is going to be up at Riverwind." And I said, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's $10. You want to go?" And I'm
Oh
like, $10?
gosh.
Yeah, let's go. And
Oh
it was a
yeah.
blast. Yeah, outdoor venue. They had a whole bunch of food trucks, and 38 Special and Blue Oyster Cult open for them.
Oh, don't fear the reaper. Very
Yep. Oh,
nice.
yeah.
That is awesome.
It was a kick, man.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's awesome. I had a friend when I was in high school. I remember that's the only thing I knew about Blue Oyster Cult. But back then, a friend of mine was a fan of Blue Oyster Cult in high school, and I was like, "Who is that man?" And I didn't listen to him or anything. And then as you go along, of course, you hear the Saturday Night Live with "We Need More Cowbell" and all that stuff. And then so I was like, "Wow, that's not bad." And with Godzilla and all that. So that's a hell of a music background you have there, buddy. That's good
Well,
stuff.
yeah, like I said, it's been very eclectic through the years. That's been a lot of fun. Music has been a huge part of my life always. I love music.
Now this one I usually get. I can't read on you how this is going to say. So beach, mountains, desert, or plains. Where would you
Ooh,
prefer?
that's tough. Um, it's either going to be beach or mountains.
Okay.
I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in Ventura County. Um, and in my young years, all through high school, the beach was a huge part of my life.
Wow.
We'd go down there a lot and spend a lot of time down at the beach. I had a wonderful opportunity to get to live in Denver for a few years
Nice.
and fell in love with the mountains. And so I'm going to have to say I'm somewhere stretched between the beach and the mountains. The other thing I got to do in Southern California, um, there's there's skiing in Southern and Central California that's very accessible to Southern Californians. That's always been kind of the running joke. You can go to the beach one day and you can go up to Big Bear and ski the next day. So I'm not a very good snow skier, but I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I stay on the intermediate runs and try not to kill myself. But so yeah, I enjoy both the mountains and the beach.
that's fantastic, man. I kind of figured you'd be a beach guy, but the mountains is good too. What else do we have? Great thing. So you got some dance. You've got two clubs now. Is that correct?
Yeah,
You call for two different your main clubs, and you travel around. You've been to all 50 states, or where you've been? How your East Coast stuff? Wherever you come this far?
I really haven't done much on the East Coast. I'd love to, but I haven't. Now that we live here in kind of the middle part of the U.S., it's easy to kind of get anywhere.
Sure.
Um, I've been all over the west side of the U.S., west to central part of the U.S. Now I'm trying to get my name a little more known further east. One of the things we're going to this year is the Tennessee State Convention.
You are going to be there. Awesome.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
fantastic.
they were kind enough to program me. I let them know that we were planning on coming, and RG was kind enough to program me. So we'll be there, and hopefully that'll get my name a little more known.
Who's programming that?
RG, and I don't know his last name. Again,
Um,
I'm not looking at my.
I'll find it. I'll find it.
Hold on.
Um, that's one of that's probably my favorite state convention. Now I haven't been to all the state conventions by any means. Um, I've been to Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee. And Tennessee is it's a great venue. The only downside to Tennessee, and I say this because I've been there so many times, downtown Gatlinburg is one road in and one road out, and it is just misery sometimes with all the traffic.
Jet was warning me that it's not uncommon to see bears,
It,
and so he
just
said he
about every
goes,
time we go, there's a Days Inn that's on that road that there's always a bear walking through the parking lot. But you know what? I've never heard of bear attacks in downtown Gatlinburg. I guess they're so used to people, they're just passing through. You know,
yeah, they're probably very used to people. I'm trying to look up RG's name, and I'm so embarrassed that I don't have it right now. but he's oh, here it is, RG. Oh, he just signs his name RG.
I'm trying to think who it would be.
RG Pratt.
Pratt. I do not know him.
And like I said, he's doing the scheduling, and he was kind enough to put me on the program, and
That's awesome.
so we're gonna have a lot of fun. It's gonna be
Yeah,
good.
I didn't know you were coming to Tennessee. That's awesome, man. We have a good time. There's a cool karaoke bar 1 block over.
We're going.
That we hit a couple times. And I don't know if you even remember it, but if you listen to Jet, last year we were at Tennessee, and the first time I really got to meet and talk to Jet, hang out with him, and we went over to the bar, a bunch of us, Justin Russell, Victoria, and Bundy, and a couple others, and Jet, and me, and of course our spouses and everything. And it was getting late, and Jet got to do karaoke. We all wanted to. They were like, "Hey, not enough time." And Jet walked in at the same time as me, and he did karaoke, and we all had a hell of a time. And so when I was on the podcast with him, I said, "Dude, how did you get to do a song?" And he said, "Charlie, $20 goes a long way in a bar like that." And I was like, that is the greatest one line I've ever heard. And so I guess he gave him $20 to do a song, and it was awesome. Yeah. And so it was a good time. But man, we will absolutely get together on that, and
we will
do some karaoke and hang out. Brother, it's great talking to you. We've been going about an hour now, and it is pouring down rain. So I will talk to you soon, and I'll see you in Tennessee, brother.
You got it, Charlie. Thank you again for being a part of this.
Robertson, it's a pleasure, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Got it, man. Thanks.
Man. Bye.